This is an important transitional slide because although we've talked a little bit about order quantities and order points, we've not given it the even close to the sufficient level of detail to make it understandable and something we can use in our professional lives. So we're talking about, in our title here, integrating DRP, that forward-thinking, time-phased planning function for the sale of finished goods, now with inventory management. Another great example of how important functional integration is, because DRP and inventory management, while linked, not necessarily the same thing at all. So we need to know what quantities we need to order and when we need to order them. And those things are dealt with order quantities and order points. So let's look at our first bullet here. So in addition to gross to net exploding and lead time offsetting, distribution professionals really have to determine order quantities and order points for replenishing finished goods in the distribution network. What's a minimum order quantity? What's a maximum order quantity? When goods get down to a certain level in inventory, 500 units left, is that the order point? Is it 250? Is it 10,000? That's what we're talking about here. What's the quantity that we're going to order in to achieve perhaps volume discounts? And at what point during the depletion of existing inventory do we get down to before we reorder? That's what we're talking about here. So these activities in our hash mark help to integrate and synchronize DRP with inventory management. Because we might know time-wise in a time bucket when we need to order. But should that order quantity be 1,000? Should it be 5,000? Should we wait till it gets down to 200? These are the considerations that the integration of DRP and inventory management help us to contemplate. New terminology we're seeing here. Economic order quantity in our second bullet point, something we're going to take a close look at, calculates the optimum replenishment amount by balancing the total cost of an order with that product's carrying costs. So EOQ, as it's called, I will say, has become less relevant in the age of globalization, especially with the advent of technology that helps to reduce the total cost of placing an order. That's what we mean. What's the total cost of an order? But understanding the principles of EOQ are pretty important because it helps us to develop more advanced methodologies that are relevant, or at least more relevant, to the age of globalization. But we do want to say that EOQ, while still important, not quite as important as it used to be. So we won't dwell too much on it, but that historical perspective and both conceptual and mathematical understanding we will do. Continuing on with this idea of order quantities and order points. An integrating activity, again, between DRP and inventory management. An order point is reached when a product's on-hand quantity reaches a predetermined level. Well, you might ask yourself, well, who decides what the predetermined level is? We as distribution professionals, using both quantitative and qualitative methodologies, judgment, if you will, have to make that determination. And the order point for every product gets into the software on an SKU-specific level. This is one of the things that DRP software manipulates, for lack of a better term, to determine when things have to take place and in what quantity. So order points for every single product that we offer in our distribution network, maybe 10, 11, 20,000 SKUs, will have this information in its particular product file in the software. So basically, continuing on with order point, when inventory is depleted down to that predetermined level, a replenishment order is generated by the system, based perhaps on the EOQ in the form of a planned order release. Here comes that planned order release aspect of our activities again. We saw that quite a bit on the MRP side. Planned order releases take us further out into our time buckets. It's a planned release. Lots of things are going to happen. between the moment we determine a planned release and it actually turns into a confirmed order release. That's that S&OP function that's constantly updating our activities. But really the goal is, among other things, in DRP, and based partially on order point, is to generate planned order releases as far out into the future as reasonably feasible. They'll change more than likely, up, down, canceled, etc., based on actual demand activities, but we have them out there, and now we're managing the process moving forward. EOQ helps us to do that. So here we are again with the product table. Should be relatively familiar now, but we're going to be focusing on how we illustrate the importance of order points and order quantities. At what point in the depletion of inventory on a specific product, ABC here, do we place an order, and in what quantity do we make that order? So order points and order quantities. We said a couple of times in our previous discussions that the output of this process, DRP related, along with inventory management, is projected available out into future time buckets. So we want to reiterate that point. And also, we can see here that our order quantity is 1,000. The question becomes, partially for this section, how did we get to that 1,000 number? That's the EOQ side of things. Before we go further, let's have a look at our definition down here. Product-specific order quantities and order points, they support gross to net exploding and lead time offsetting. Right here, for example. By providing the quantity of a product that needs to be ordered and at what point it should be ordered. Not necessarily at what point in time, although that's very important. That's a lead time offsetting issue. But at what point in the consumption of our existing inventory do we allow that inventory to deplete from 1,000 units down to 200? At what time do we generate an order? That's what we mean by an order point. So gross to net exploding, lead time offsetting, very important. They work hand in hand with order quantities and order points to execute the entire activity. We've discussed gross to net, of course, and lead time offsetting in some detail, so we're going to continue to focus on these points here. You can determine order quantities and order points using a variety of tools such as EOQ or the order point system. There are other tools. We aren't going to go into all of them, but we will illustrate EOQ as well as examples from the order point methodology. So just to summarize this slide, order point and order quantity is integral to gross to net exploding and lead time offsetting. The goal being projected available out into the future. So gross to net exploding and lead time offsetting aren't the same as order quantities and order points. They work together. And we will move on to show just exactly how that happens.